Well, I think there's a lot of people that certainly love morel mushrooms. I'm definitely one of them. But I don't know if, the average person wants that or understands that in a cheese. So when we had that in the competition last year, it went a lot further than I expected it to. And it's really nice to be able to put something out there that excites people and makes them say, wow. And, when you have a cheese that's, riddled with really tasty bits of Wisconsin morels and leeks, it's magnificent. And it definitely made a big impact.
Hello! Welcome to The Corner Table, a Capital Times podcast about food and drink in Madison. It's bracket season, and I am not much for baskets or balls, so let's talk cheese. Jack Kear has the enviable job of coordinating the annual cheese championship at the Willy Street Co-op. His better bracket pits cheddar against Munster and feta against blue for a dairy duel to the death. Can Gouda beat Havarti? Will Swiss triumph over butterkase? Only one way to find out. I'm your host, Cap Times food writer Lindsay Christians. As a note to listeners, we recorded this podcast before the competition began, so a few cheeses we talk about have already fallen off the leaderboard. The contest continues through April 1st, so give a listen and get ready to vote with your taste buds. Welcome, Jack.
Hi. Glad to be here.
Thank you for coming in today.
Yeah.
So when I saw the cheese competition, the bracket was happening again, I was pretty excited about it. So first of all, tell people who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Jack Kear, and I am the Willy Street Co-op's event coordinator for going on 10 years now. My job is to work on promoting the idea of the co-op, and part of that means promoting the incredible local small food businesses that we work with. And so right now we're working on our cheese challenge, and that's a real synthesis of both of those things where we get to showcase the uniqueness of the co-op and of all these great cheese artisans.
So how many cheeses are in the competition?
Well, we start out with 32, and today is the first day. So we will work with 32 different cheeses today through Sunday. So each day you'll be able to stop at any of the 3 locations of the co-op and sample 8 cheeses per day. So there's, 32 obviously by the end of those 4 days. So it's a lot to juggle. There's a lot going on this first week. So if you're interested in tasting a wide array, the first week is a great time to be in there.
After this first round of cheeses, just one will win out of each head-to-head, right?
Yeah, when we first started doing it 4 years ago, we really just kind of sat around and thought about the possibilities of what we could do to kind of add some excitement post-winter. Everybody has... We're in Wisconsin, and we all go through the same thing together of hunkering down and probably eating a lot of comfort food. And, every January we kind of turn our attention to folks making resolutions to sort of turn that around and get out on a good new foot. So by the time March comes around, we're anticipating spring, but we wanted to do something a little bit more zippy. And right around this time is obviously the huge basketball tournament, the March Madness. And so one of my coworkers had this brilliant idea to say, what if we found all of these great cheeses from our great state of Wisconsin and had them get into their own bracket and duke it out to get the number 1 spot. So
how do you choose which 32 cheeses make that cut?
Boy, it's tricky, and it's also evolved and evolving. But the first year, I think, what we really did was just kind of look at our inventory and say, hey, what's good, and what would we like to sample? What do we like? What do we want people to know about? A lot of the cheesemakers that we work with, we develop really nice personal relationships with. And sometimes, somebody you see regularly and you want more people to know about what they're doing. So I think the first year, a lot of folks just got on the list because our cheese coordinators at each of our stores were really endorsing them and saying people need to know more about this cheese. And so now we're in our fourth year, and that's really, taken off. I feel like the program has been really well established, and so you have to kind of do a balancing act then and make sure that there's fair representation. So while we want to, carry forward some tried and true cheeses, we also want to introduce some new cheeses. So it's still a matter of our purchasing team talking to our cheese coordinators and saying, okay, what's new? What's different? What was in last year? What might we want to, compete against and throw in there? And what's going to work? What's going to be weird? What's going to be hot? Our lead cheese buyer, Jeremy Johnson, is the primary decision maker on all of that. But, we're a co-op, so there's a lot of collaboration that gets involved there too.
Are there any new cheeses this year that you've never had in the competition before?
Yeah, there's a couple. I was, reviewing our list just earlier this week as we're getting ready to kick it off, and also comparing some of it to the recent World Cheese Championship. So I'm pretty excited because one of the cheeses from that championship will also be participating in our own challenge, and that is the Leclerc Chandoka. So you can anticipate seeing that tomorrow. Actually, that will be part of the sampling. We have the Roth Grand Cru Surchoix. That's going to be a part of our tasting this year. That's actually tomorrow as well. And I think facing off against that Chandoka. So that's kind of a blood match right off the bat. I'm curious to see how that shakes out. And then we just have nice representations from all different parts of the state and all different kinds of cheese and all sort of different makers, everything from, the Viroqua area through Door County over to the western side.
I was interested to see that, you've got a couple cheeses from Hooks, which is, very well known in this area, but you made very specific choices around that, right? It's the Hooks 5-year cheddar is in the competition, and then you've also got the Triple Play Extra Innings, which is a triple milk cheese.
Yeah, it's got it
aged.
all. Yes, so I guess it's cow, sheep, goat. And it's all been aged. So, and it's also our title holder from last year. So, throughout last year's competition, they just were the favorite and walked away with it. So, they're back again this year, and competing against their own brand, the 5-year cheddar.
You've got one of my favorite Car Valley cheeses, which is the Marissa. I actually really love the cave-aged Marissa.
Ooh.
A beautiful cheese. But you've got, my favorite feta of all your fetas is the Hidden Springs sheep milk feta. You've got that in the competition. I'm happy to see that.
It's so good. It's so creamy. It's so lovely. It's really, I think, a great springtime cheese. Sort of always comes around my plate around this time of year. It makes me really excited that winter's kind of ending, and it's a perfect cheese for the season.
I love that cheese. I loved seeing a nice sort of smattering of goat milk cheeses. It's always good to see those.
Yeah, I think we have the Montchevre.
Got the Montchevre
is going in. The Car Valley Billy Blue is a part of the contest this year. So yeah, definitely a nice spread of not only cow but goat and sheep milk cheeses. I'm actually partial to the sheep milk cheeses, so. I hear you on that Hidden Springs feta.
There were some that I totally expected to see. The Pleasant Ridge Reserve is always going to be there.
Yeah.
That Bandaged Cheddar, which I actually picked to go all the way.
The Bandaged Cheddar is definitely a crowd favorite. It's a really good bet. It's hard to say anything negative about. It's a delicious, fantastic cheese, and I would say putting your money on that to go all the way is a really smart move. But I'm betting otherwise.
I thought the Montemore would go pretty far from Sartori just because it's got such a wonderful buttery texture for like a cheddar kind of cheese.
Yeah.
So, and it's not technically a cheddar, I don't think.
No, it's a very mysterious cheese in terms of, what it is. It seems to be a kind of melding of mozzarella and cheddar, and the flavor is very unique. It's another big favorite of our voters and previous title holder as well. I think now that we're in our fourth year, it's very interesting to me to look back at the winners because they've all been so different from each other. When we started in 2015, The first winner of the challenge was from the Rowley Cheese Company. It was their Dunbarton Blue. And no one in the beginning of that competition, I think, that was behind the scenes planning would have thought that Blue would have walked away with the title. At least the first year, I thought that perhaps it would be something that, maybe people would build up to, experiment and learn. But I was psyched. It just shows that we're working with a really sophisticated audience and a group of people who really like to experiment with their cheese. And then the second year, the Sartori Montemor won, which I thought was also, very easy to understand. It's a very likable cheese. There's, hardly anybody I know that would, not want to have that on anything they've got for dinner. And then last year, as we already mentioned, the Hooks Triple Play was our winner. So who knows what's going to happen this year? Every year it seems to take a different turn.
My colleague picked the black pepper Sartori, kind of a Parmesan-ish cheese, Parmesan-ish.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, they also 2 years ago were the big winners at the Cheese Championship. Yes. And that espresso rub was definitely, the leading option that they had. So it doesn't surprise me. I think they are back in our challenge this year. So I'm sure we can expect to see them go far as well.
I noticed that you chose the Marika 6 to 9 month Gouda for this competition, and I feel like I love the one with fenugreek. I love the one that has a little bit more age on it as well. But You're picking something that's in some ways going to be representative of what this cheesemaker does.
Yes, I think, part of it is always a little bit debatable because we really want to sort of showcase the true artistry of the cheesemaker. So when you do a flavored cheese, even a winner like the Sartori Espresso, it calls to question whether you're getting a great example of the purity of that craft. But it also, at the end of the day says there's a lot of creativity there with this maker. And the fundamental mission, I think, of the Cheese Challenge is to not be on the same level of serious sophistication as the Cheese Championship, but to have fun. And, we want to make sure that shoppers are not only learning about the cheeses that we offer, but that also they enjoy it. It's it's an election, but it's not as serious as some of the other elections we've been facing these past few years.
That is absolutely true. Have there been things that have surprised you, like upsets that have surprised you?
There's always something in the competition that I think that goes further than, you would expect it to, like I just mentioned about the blue cheese. But, regarding flavored cheeses, one of the cheeses that's in again this year is the Renard's Morel and Leek. And I think that was a really interesting and brave addition to the challenge because not many people are well, I think there's a lot of people that certainly love morel mushrooms. I'm definitely one of them. But I don't know if, the average person wants that or understands that in a cheese. So when we had that in the competition last year, it went a lot further than I expected it to. And, we got a lot of really great feedback. I did many of the days of the challenge myself at the demo station, being the person doing the sampling and getting the feedback and tallying the votes. And it's really nice to be able to put something out there that excites people and makes them say, wow. And, when you have a cheese that's, riddled with really tasty bits of Wisconsin morels and leeks, it's magnificent. And it definitely, made a big impact.
Do you find that you are explaining what the cheeses are and how they're made to individual people? Does the story make a difference in how folks vote?
Sometimes. I trained our staff that's doing the challenge this year, and part of that was letting them know what I think some of the more common questions are going to be. And I think the primary question people tend to ask is, what is the milk variety that it comes from? So people definitely want to know cow, sheep milk, obviously, that question. But also people are very curious about where the cheese comes from. People are very regional in their cheese loyalty in Wisconsin. that you'll find that you meet somebody who is very familiar with the driftless region and is very loyal to the cheeses that come out of that area, or someone who, maybe spends a lot of time in Door County and they've done a lot of really fine dining in that area. So some of the cheeses that they have most experienced come from Door County. So I think when, we meet someone who's really eager to be a part of the cheese challenge, you're finding that they want to know what kind of cheese is it based upon the milk, where is it from, and then if they're more, if they're coming in with a little bit more knowledge than the average person, they will often tell us stories about the cheesemakers.
That's really cool. What cheese do you have from Door County?
Well, we have the Renards from Sturgeon Bay. This year we have their terrific trio, which I haven't tried before. That's a first new addition to the challenge for us. And then they also brought in their Morel and Leek, which I mentioned earlier. So that one's back. And we also have Renard beer cheddar this year, which is made with a dark lager and apparently is going to be exactly what you want if you're eating burgers.
There are cheeses in this competition that I think of in just completely different ways. Mm-hmm. And I was filling out my bracket and I was thinking about, who am I voting with my heart or my head? Like what do I think things are going to win? And it's such a challenge, I think, sometimes because I don't put them all in the same category of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think about that in terms of what I've learned from doing the cheese challenge, where, 4 years ago, I think I had that same anxiety approaching a cheese case where, gosh, it's so overwhelming. It's such an intimidating field to understand. And, where do you even begin? Sometimes you're just walking in there because you want to invite friends over to grill something on your patio and you need something to throw on top of it. But other times maybe you want to put out a spread of cheeses and add some fruit and really put a nice platter together. So if you're coming at it from nowhere, you don't even really know where to begin. But I think the interesting thing about doing the challenge is it runs over 3 weeks. So we have a lot of people that are coming in almost daily, and they're definitely learning a lot in that time span, and they're remembering and coming back the next year. And I know, at least for me, you might get just a very basic message or lesson from it the first time you do it. So, for example, you might be able to learn, these are the melty cheeses. I need something melty. So at least you're coming in and you can, push aside an entire section of the case because it's not going to accomplish your mission of getting something melty. 2 or 3 years into it, I was remembering names, I know makers, I know varieties, I remember flavors. So I think it's definitely one of those things where the more you do it, the more you learn. So, I now know melty and I know beyond melty. So
that's wonderful. Are there favorites that you have this year? Who are you picking to win?
I am going to go with, I think, probably the safest bet. It's not my nature to jump on that, but I tasted the Chandoka and I love it. And after I tasted the Chandoka, I learned that it went so far in the World Cheese Championship. So once I learned that, I thought, oh man, I got to put my money on this. This is going to be a good step. But I have to say, I also secretly always root for Blue Mont. I toured Willie Leonard's property where he makes his blue cheese, and it's an amazing and beautiful place. And I think what he does is really exceptional. And he produces a blue cheese that is of the most high quality. It's a lovely product. So I think I'd like to I always root for that. I want to see that go further.
Bandaged Cheddar. All the way. That's what I'm calling it. Calling it right now. So people can vote and participate in this through when?
Well, the brackets are closed, but the actual voting goes up until April 1st. So we'll be doing the sampling and voting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So you can come into the store anytime between noon and 6 p.m. If you're in the store, you're going to taste a lot of cheese, and that's great.
This has got to be really popular.
It is, and it's constantly growing. We assess how many people participate by keeping track of our brackets and our votes. And since we've been doing this, we've also opened our third location. So we now have a north side Willy Street Co-op, and that just increases the numbers of people that are learning and enjoying about the cheese challenge. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are playing, and it's fun. Why would you not want to?
Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
This has been The Corner Table, a podcast about food and drink in Madison produced by the Capital Times. I am your host, Cap Times food writer Lindsay Christians, and our music was composed by Patrick Christians. Subscribe to The Corner Table wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Facebook at Corner Table Podcast. Visit captimes.com to see a photo of Jack at the cheese competition and a look at this year's bracket. Even if a cheese is not in the running anymore, it's most likely still in the case, including that LeClaire Farms Shandoka that Jack picked to win it all. My charge to you this week is to seek out Landmark Creamery's Petite Nuage, a sheep milk cheese that means little clouds. It's perfect for spring. Cheers!